This is how I almost lost my life on the road. And while I will never ride a motorcycle by myself again, for some context on this situation, I should begin with saying that for over 10 years, I've been an avid rider, making a trip across the country every year since 2010. It started with me and a group of friends who, over the years, went from 5 of us to just me going by myself, from our home state of California to Florida. Often at times, I would bring what I needed for the trip: a backpack with some clothes, food, and my other essentials. The ride would take on an average 6 to 7 days, making plenty of stops and always taking new highways and back roads to see new things. This was always a great ride, and you meet the craziest of people, not to mention the wildlife you encounter when riding on the road in the later hours of the day. I had just made it to the halfway point of my trip to Texas. Gas was running low, so I stopped by a Shell gas station to fill up. There was another guy riding his bike as well, filling up next to me. So we made some small talk, and I told him about my trip and the tradition I had going. He had said that he was also traveling across country, but not all the way to Florida, but to Alabama. After getting to know him better, we both decided to join one another. His name was Ethan, and he seemed like a really cool dude. He wasn't much older than myself, and said if I wanted to go to his buddy's house, it was just the next city over, and he said I could crash out there instead of paying for a hotel for the night. No red flags went off, as he even called his friend to ask if it was okay. He did say to his bud that I was an old friend of his, and gave me a wink and a thumbs up. I was just more excited to have a decent roof over my head, since this part of the state was already getting colder. I know now that I should have really been more careful around strangers, but I digress. So Ethan and I continued following his trail. I had turned off my GPS at this point because I figured there was no point in using it for now. We went down some long stretches of road without many houses or much of anything around for miles. I was starting to think to myself that he said it was the next town over, but now here we are going in and out of roads for what must have been at least 45 minutes. Finally, we get to this large house on a pretty decent sized property. Ethan then pulling up to me and tells me to go along with him, and everything will be cool. Now I'm thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? His friend comes outside and is a pretty large man, heavy set with a beard. Looked like he'd been out hunting or camping, as he still had mud all over his boots and clothes. His friend introduced himself as Tyler, and he and Ethan started chatting away. Tyler then said if we were down for a few drinks, as his wife was out of town for the night, and he was long overdue for a cold one. Personally, I'm not a drinker, but I didn't want to be rude, so I said sure. We all sat around his table in his garage drinking and talking about our road trip. At some point I must have had too much and I passed out. Later that night I woke up at probably around 3 or 4 a.m. I could hear those two talking still. I wandered around Tyler's house looking for some water because I had cottonmouth, and I was dying for a drink. I walked across a window that showed the front of the house and noticed right away that my bike that I had parked next to Ethan's was gone. I ran across another window to make sure it wasn't just the angle of view, and confirmed that it was indeed missing. I checked my pockets, and my keys and phone were also missing. Now the red flags that I should have noticed earlier were all around me. I was still too drunk to really think about it. I could hear those two voices getting closer. I was panicking too much to listen to what they were saying. I just pictured all the horror movies I'd watched over the years, and that they're most likely going to kill me and skin me and make me into a rug. I figured my best bet now was to go back around to where we've been drinking and see if my keys and phone were there. Now the house was a pretty decent size with a lot of hallways and doors that led to other rooms. As I passed the bathroom, I turned on the light and locked the door, closing it behind me. I figured if they did see that I wasn't sleeping where I was, they would go see the bathroom and think I was in there. Sure enough, not even a minute later, I hear Ethan calling out my name and asking if I was okay in there. I knew they were outside the bathroom door now, and I just kept going. I almost jumped out of my skin when the next part happened. I heard a loud thud noise, and again, then the sound of the door being thrown off of its hinges and smacking the wall. I was now booking it across the house when I came across my keys in the hat of Tyler's. Still no phone, but I wasn't going to stick around long to find it. I went right out the back door and booked it around the property. Still couldn't find my bike anywhere, and I could hear those two running around the house shouting now. The door swung open and they both came running out with something in hand. I ducked into the patio deck and I just hid there for a while. I could only see their feet running by every now and then. As I waited under here, I ended up spotting my bike under a tarp about 40 yards away. My fight or flight response must have kicked in and I booked it out of there. I didn't even care now where they were. I just used every bit of energy I had to get out of there. I made it to my bike and started it up. And now I can see the two running my way. I ended up going so fast my bike almost kicked me off. And I swear I heard a bullet go right by me. The next part is kind of a blur, but I'll try to explain as much as I can remember. I kept going down this long stretch of road looking for signs that would put me back on the highway. As I was riding, I could see from behind me the lights from a car, and it was getting closer and closer. Keep in mind that I was going at least 80 to 90 miles an hour, and only slowing down for when the road would start hitting bends. The area around was surrounded by very large trees that I couldn't see much from besides the light of the moon illuminating them. There were no streetlights out this far, and I remember thinking, if I made one wrong turn, or if a deer walked down in front of me, I was done for. And sure enough, just as I was making another sharp turn, this large deer-like thing ran right up on my left side, causing me to go into a death wobble. I was extremely lucky to recover and get my balance back. Then I passed a sign that showed that the I-10 was just a few miles up the road. The lights in the car from behind me had faded since, and I just kept driving. Finally, I hit the highway and I was finally able to catch my breath and process everything that had just happened. I still felt buzzed, but more wired and aware than ever. The rest of the trip was pretty calm. I ended up getting a new phone to finish my trip, and I wanted to report it to the police, but I didn't remember the address, and when I did make it to Florida, I just decided to have my bike shipped back to Cali, and took a plane ride home after my trip. I still have no clue who they were, or what their intentions were. I'm just glad I never found out though. Hey friends, thanks for checking out today's video. If you haven't yet, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. If you guys want some more behind the scenes actions, make sure to follow me on my social medias. Links to these will be provided in the description, including my public Discord. Also, I don't know if you guys know this, but I have a podcast. You can check it out down below. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcast and all the other major ones if you want to listen to the old narrations. Not on YouTube if you want to listen to it. Anyways, and that's about it. And I also want to thank you to all my Patreons. You guys have been a blessing, and my channel members. Thank you guys again. And with all that being said, I just want to thank you again, and remember, keep it spooky. Also, it's my birthday. I recorded this on my birthday. I'm 25 today. I'm an old man. Yes, old man. Anyways, all right, I gotta go eat cake now. So, thanks guys.